Hello, what's going on? Rich Ryan here. Today in this video, I'm going to talk about my splits from DEKAFIT Chicago 2022 in hopes that you can get some insight on what kind of splits are reasonable to shoot for if you're looking to run these events, and also learn from some of the mistakes that I made and some of the things that I picked up along the way. So if you want a little bit more detail, you can look at a longer video that I recorded with Nick Reiger and Ryan Kent, who finished first and second to my third in this race. Or if you want the race in its absolute entirety, make sure you follow Obstacle Fitness X and Dave Claxton. They did a great job of streaming this full race. And of course, if you are liking this content, hit me with a like, hit me with a subscribe, so you can make sure you get all of the newest content about hybrid racing coming directly to your feed. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so right from the jump, we're gonna take a look at the splits from Chicago. I'm gonna go through station by station, just kind of talking about some of the ins and outs of it. So the first run was pretty comfortable here. It was a little bit short, I would imagine, as it did not feel like 5:12 pace. And in previous races, that first 500 has been a bit short. So just based on where it starts. So we came out, it was a big pack of things, about a 138 on that. And then we go right into the lunges. And then the lunges was about 41 seconds, which is right about where I've been in all of the lunges to date. So you can see there's a different technique that we've been using that has been a little bit more of like a twist and kind of a lunge backwards instead of a straightforward back lunge. According to the rules, this style of back lunge is appropriate. It just kind of looks funny. It's more like I've been kind of drawing the line to how CrossFit does their pull-ups. It still meets the movement standard of chin over the bar or chest to the bar, but with just this crazy kipping, it just looks weird. And people get kind of taken back by the look of it. And I think that's the same with these lunges. I don't think that there is any type of advantage to doing this in terms of like shortening the range of motion. I just feel it's a little bit more efficient, and I feel like you're able to kind of keep your torso upright because you have to get all the way up to kind of turn your hips. So it just feels a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient, and kind of eliminates the possibility of a jumping lunge, which when you're going straight backwards, it's really hard not to do. For these lunges, I did at least 22 of them. When I came in, my judge was not counting out loud, and I was counting mentally. Then when I asked him where I was, around like 12 or 14, he was 2 reps behind where I was. So that was a little frustrating from the jump, and it wasn't really much I could do to argue as my count versus his count. So I would recommend that you count out loud to start and ask your judge as you're coming in to have him count out loud for you so you know exactly where you are during these lunges, because these judges, they're not necessarily trained that well, and they, as silly as it sounds, it is kind of hard to run through what is a good rep while kind of counting and staying engaged, even if it's just for 41 seconds. So people are probably going to screw this up. So for you, I would recommend that you count out loud or run in there and ask your judge to count out loud really quick. Coming out of there, I felt okay. I was behind because I did some extras and I didn't have a great spot in the lunge zone. So I'd recommend finding where you want to go ahead of time and kind of establishing your position, where Ryan Kent did a good job of like putting himself in a position and going directly to where he wanted to go. And I just didn't do that. I came out in fourth, which isn't great. And then I ran a like 142, which is about 5:28 pace, which would have been my fastest 500 of the day, not counting that first one. So I had to kind of go and kind of catch up to the group a little bit. Coming into the row, another thing I didn't really look at is where the opening was for the station. In the past, the station has always been right in the beginning. And so I just assume when you come in, every station is going to be equidistant, depending on where you're. There's going to be spots, of course, like toward the back of the station is going to be a little bit further, but I would think on the sides it'd be about the same from there. It's just a matter of how you're going to enter and exit. The row was not like that. The entrance was shifted much dramatically toward what would be the I think like west side of the arena. And so when I came in fourth, I kind of shot straight to the east side thinking that it would be equidistant, and it wasn't. It was far from it. The one rower was directly in front of the entrance. I probably had 1.5 to 2 seconds of running to get to my station. And while I was there, the straps weren't all the way open. If I was to do this again, I would go to that row station and open up all of the straps just to ensure that when everybody comes in there, they're able to get their feet in, because this early in the race, it can cause a pretty big delay. This happened to David Magida in the first race that I ran at West Palm, where he just couldn't get his feet in. And by the time he got his feet in and did his row, I was already gone. So that basically was the entire race there. For this wasn't the entire race, but it did put me back some. I just shoved my feet in there, just like my toes, and just started to go, which I would recommend doing instead of fiddling with the actual row, the actual pedals themselves. So you can see my row was around 153. This is with transition. So I was rowing about 140, and just with the transition in and out, it added that much time. I wouldn't say 13 seconds. So my average by the time I was done with the row was probably, 142, just all things considered, with the start and the finish, and just kind of getting in and out of that. So a little bit slower than I would like. In my previous, I was right around the same though, 155 and 153. So it's just about kind of where I am. And when you're rowing 140, you can expect it to be that much time in and out of the station itself. Run 3, again, I had to kind of push a little bit here. I was feeling not amazing at this point because I was a little bit in over my head. And this was my slowest third run after the row in any of my races to date, and which kind of put me already 14 seconds slower between these first 3 stations, between these first 2 stations and the run than I've been in the past. So just those 2 errors adds a lot of time, and then I had to make up for that in terms of the effort that I put out on the run after the row. Even though it wasn't that fast, it felt like it was fast. And then this comes into the box overs. So the box overs is another kind of technique that has been kind of tweaked by the people at the top to try to maximize the speed and efficiency of these things. You can see Ryan Kent and myself, we kind of corner the box. So we kind of step over the corner into the middle of the box and then over. From this angle, it looks like my one foot isn't reaching all the way to the other side of the box. On the other side, it does look like it's my foot as it's landing is landing past the box. And I never thought about not making it there. I thought it was. But I think this might be changed. I think you're going to want to do it much more like how Nick Riker was doing, was coming directly over the side of it, which I think is fair, and I think that's fine. So I don't think that I was necessarily shorting it, but maybe. And when I go ahead and counted my box overs from the video, I did 22 of those as well. So maybe I was getting no reps, but my judge wasn't calling me on them and just wasn't telling me. But I think they just miscounted again. So again, that's another spot where I lost some time. And so I'm going to definitely practice the side to side, coming directly over the vertical plane of the side of the box as opposed to the horizontal plane on the back and front of the box going forward. And so my runs are still okay. I'm still kind of hanging in there around that 5:30 something after that, which is fine. Which is in my first race, I was averaging much faster than that. If we scroll over here to West Palm, I was in the 5-teens and 5:20s past the sit-ups. The sit-ups is really not too much to talk about here. If you watch a team race, Kevin Gregory was doing a crunch and launching the med ball at the target, and it would bounce right back to him. I think that's a great method. I'm probably going to try it out. But for this, just kind of got through it. I was a little bit faster than I've done the sit-ups before, so that's encouraging. And on the 5th run, this is the slowest run that I think I've ever done in a DEKAFIT, and for no other reason than I just kind of fell asleep for it. 156 is about 6:12 pace. I should be pretty comfortable, and this should have been a part of the race where I was feeling a little bit more urgent than I was, and I just kind of lost where I was, and where the station was. Maybe it made it a bit longer, but I don't think so. I think I just fell asleep here. I think I just straight up fell asleep. This isn't a very taxing station before it, and maybe I was concerned about making sure the SkiErg was where I wanted it to be. And then I got to SkiErg, and it was one of my slower SkiErgs. So this must just be a fitness thing, kind of what tells me here. I haven't been doing too much running pointed toward this event, and I've been doing mostly focusing on strength, and it showed. My running wasn't very good, and my fitness by this point in the middle of the race, where the SkiErg, where I have been doing a lot of work, I was just so tired that it was my slowest SkiErg today at 2:04. So I was pulling 53s, but it was probably at the end averaged 155 or something like that, just with the start. Like if you ever started with a SkiErg and watched on the second display where it shows where your average is, it takes a while for it to get there. So I think I was just slow. And then the next run, I kind of snapped back into it and kind of had that urgency, which I should have had much earlier. I should have had the urgency almost from the start, but I waited, and that was kind of the plan. But I just kind of put myself behind. Farmer's Carry, nothing really to say here. Run after that, still in a good spot, about the same as what I've always been leading into the assault bike. My assault bike was my fastest assault bike yet at 119, where I've been 128 and 124 in the previous races. I felt okay about this. It was still like mid 70s for it. I changed my bike setting before the race, but someone had changed it lower. I'm guessing someone from the female race, which rightfully so. They should have. I did the same thing. So I got on that and it was a little bit lower than where I wanted it. I'm usually at 8 to 9 on these specific assault bikes, but it just took a little bit out of me, and I was just kind of a little bit crashed, and it wasn't going as powerful as possible. Also, if you have like a standard assault bike, which you'll see at most CrossFit gyms, I don't know the actual model, but the model that they have at DEKAFIT doesn't give you as much free energy as the ones that you might have at your gym. These feel more like a Rogue Echo bike, where when you slow down, the thing stops and you stop getting the calorie count, where on the regular one, it can kind of spin, and that's that free energy that I'm talking about. So just keep that in mind. If you're getting toward the end, which is what I did, I kind of took the pedal off for like the last calorie, and it took a long time to get there and really kind of slowed me down. My run after it was pretty good. A 154 is a pretty decent run, being able to be right around 6-minute pace after the assault bike this late. So I think I had a little bit more juice than I was willing to put out there. This was my third race coming down from altitude, and it's starting to understand like how that's going to feel and what I'm going to be capable of doing. It doesn't feel like an instant instant boost. It feels like you can press into the movements a little bit faster and not feel as exhausted, but it still feels hard. The effort is still high, but you can sustain the effort a little bit better, where I thought I was just gonna be like, oh, okay, I can breathe better now, and now I'm faster. And that's really not the case. For the dead ball overs, this was a pretty slow station for me. I was about 120, which was slower than both of the previous times I've done DEKAFIT by about 8 seconds. They changed it, so now it's a yoke. So there's tall pillars on the side and small pillars where you put the weights for if you're doing like strongman training to kind of get up under the weight itself. This makes it a little bit funny to kind of get around it. It wasn't incredibly annoying, but it was like a little bit annoying in this rate late in the race. Honestly, I was just tired. So just be aware that is probably what it's going to be from now on, which I think is better in terms of how to practice, because a lot of CrossFit gyms, a lot of regular like strongman type gyms are going to have a yoke carry there, so it's going to be much easier for you to practice, where instead of having like that, whatever it was, like a 4-foot wall that they had before, which is very specific to Spartans. So you'll have the ability to practice very specifically for it and how to get around. I'm going to try to practice like my exact steps and what I think is fastest, just to kind of commit that to memory, where I was just kind of doing kind of slogging my way around. The deep balls is mostly about effort and hitting it hard. Run 9 was fine, still under 6-minute pace here. So my tank push was very slow. This is a place that I haven't quite figured out how to improve during the race itself. Like, it's weird because it feels hard if you're going slow, and it feels harder when you're going fast. I'm almost at the point where you should just push it as hard as you can and just like see what happens. It's really about the effort and how much you're willing for it to suck. And you have one more run after, and you can just deal with it. So this tank sometimes the tanks will kind of slide over this type of concrete. Mine wasn't. It was catching, and I was pushing back considerably. So I would recommend just hitting this thing hard. I walked it back as opposed to rowing it back. So I think a row back would be a little bit, give you a little bit of a reprieve on your quads. I was just tired at this point and just wanted to kind of get it done. And that's how I've been doing it in practice, and they've been going fairly well. So a little disappointed on that. I lost a ton of time there. Riker, who was right in front of me, he beat me by 35 seconds, and he beat me in this tank and beat me in the race by like 25 seconds or something like that. So a little bit due to the tank choice. And these tanks are not necessarily going to be equal because of the flooring and because they don't always catch the flooring, depending on, like, I guess it's like dirt or dust. Sometimes they slide over, and if those wheels aren't spinning, it doesn't create the magnetic resistance. So if it's sliding over the top, you're not getting that. So it's faster. So this is like, as much as we want these to be standardized, they just aren't. Like, it's just tough to have any type of sled push or pull in these events and have it work the way that we want them to work. But it's still an effort-based thing. Ryan Kent was about 2 flat. So that's 40 seconds on one station, which is just like not acceptable. I just have to go a little bit harder on these. Last run was fine, and right around 5:51, so I was able to kick it home a little bit. My ramp burpees were 116 here, and in the video of the coverage, there's definitely points where I didn't clear my head. I was just really trying to short it and get it back down, and wasn't called for no reps. And that's not because I was trying to cheat the system. I was just trying to do the least amount of work I possibly could. And if the official is calling those good reps, then I think that they're good reps. That's how everybody is going to be across the board for this. So make sure you get a little bit up over your head. So what this means to me is that I need to work on my more specific fitness. Like I said, leading into this, I wasn't very caught up in getting as prepared as possible for this specific race. So it's a bit of a wake-up call that my running does need to improve, and it needs to kind of get it back to where it was. I think that is possible. I'm a little bit bigger than what I have been in the past. I think I'm about 10 pounds heavier than where I was when I ran my PR on this, but my station work should be better than it has ever been before, and it will be. And I just need to kind of ultimately up my total running ability here. So I'm going to get into a lot more threshold runs because it's around what this pace kind of feels like, and just amassing volume there on the rower, on the SkiErg, and with running. So you're going to see that a lot more for me, and really improving my running is what this kind of calls for. It's about 16 weeks from that race to the World Championships, which is plenty of time to turn that fitness around. So I was discouraged in terms of how I raced in the first early portions of these races. So I'm going to need to get another race under my belt just to kind of smooth out those details. And from there, I'm going to be able to just improve my fitness and get ready for the next block of training and races that I got coming up. So I hope this was helpful, just being able to kind of take a look at these kind of splits and kind of what I'm thinking going through it, and being able to learn from them yourself. Again, check out the videos that we did with Kent and Riker, and also the full video of this race if that's something that's interesting to you. Hit me with a like, hit me with a subscribe. Make sure you take a look at the DEKAFIT and Hyrox group training. All the things that I learned, we put into practice for them. People in that training group are absolute killers. They are working hard, and this program is hard. It's not for beginners. It's for people that really want to work hard and get better and improve on all the stations across the board. So get a free 7-day trial down below, and hopefully I'll see you in there. If not, I'll see you with the next video.